Chapter 8, Physical Development in Early Childhood. Early childhood is a developmental period that extends from the end of infancy to about 5 or 6 years of age. This is also referred to as the preschool years. During this time, children learn to become more self-sufficient and to care for themselves. They develop school readiness skills such as following instructions and identifying letters, and they spend many hours in play with their peers. Remember that a child's growth in height and weight is the most rapid during the first year. It begins to slow during the second year and continues to slow in early childhood. These are just some facts about the weight and height changes that occur during this period. So girls are slightly smaller and lighter than boys. Children slim down as their chunks begin to lengthen, and by the end of the stage, the head looks more proportionate to the body. They lose baby fat, giving them a leaner look, but girls have more fatty tissue than boys, and boys have more muscle tissue than girls. This is on average for typical development. However, growth patterns do vary from individual to individual. Much of this variation is due to heredity, so your genes, but the environment, of course, also plays a role. The two most important contributors to height differences in children are ethnic origin and nutrition. In the U.S., African American children tend to be taller than non-Latino white children. There are several reasons why a child may be unusually short for their age. These include prenatal or genetic problems, growth hormone deficiency, a physical problem that develops in childhood, maternal smoking during pregnancy, emotional difficulty, chronic sickness, abuse, or neglect. Typically, the underlying issue, though, is the growth hormone because being neglected, being sick, those things can cause the growth hormone to not secrete properly. Growth hormone deficiency is the absence or deficiency of growth hormone produced by the pituitary gland that stimulates the body's growth. This can occur in infancy or later in childhood. 10,000 to 15,000 U.S. children have growth hormone deficiency, and without treatment, these children would not reach a height of 5 feet. Treatment consists of regular injections of growth hormone, sometimes daily. Typically, boys tend to be treated for growth hormone deficiency more than girls. One reason for this might be that parents are more concerned about their male child's height and weight being low, whereas with girls they're expected to be small, so that's not really a concern to parents of female children. So now let's talk about physical changes in the brain. So by age 6, the brain has reached about 95% of its adult volume, which means that by age 6, your brain is almost the same size it'll be as when you're an adult. We can attribute some of the brain's growth during this period to increases in the number and size of nerve endings and receptors. Whenever we increase nerve endings and receptors, it allows for more effective communication to occur in the brain. Also, some of the increase in size is due to the increase in myelination, which is something you should remember from the infancy chapter. Myelination is a process in which nerve cells are covered and insulated with a layer of fat cells, which allows for an increase in the speed and efficiency of information traveling through the nervous system. So basically, whenever you touch a hot stove, the information has to go from your hand, which is now touching the hot stove, to your brain to tell your body to move your hand off the stove. So the faster that occurs in your brain, the faster the communication occurs, the faster you'll move your hand away. If it takes a long time for the message to get to your brain and then your brain to send a message to your hand to remove itself, then you could be holding your hand there for a long time rather than just like a half a second. So that's myelination. It allows for faster communication. One study found that children around age 4 who showed developmental delays or delays in motor or cognitive milestones had significantly reduced levels of myelination. The neurotransmitter dopamine also increases in concentration from ages 3 to 6. Dopamine helps regulate movement, attention, learning, and emotional responses. It also enables us to not only see rewards, but to take action and to move toward those rewards as well. From 3 to 6 years of age, the most rapid growth occurs in the frontal lobes. Frontal lobes are involved in planning and organizing new actions and in maintaining attention to tasks. As the brain continues to mature, so do the child's cognitive abilities. For example, as the prefrontal cortex matures, the child becomes better at focusing attention and their working memory capacity increases. So we discussed gross and fine motor skills last time. Remember, gross motor skills typically involve large muscles, whereas fine motor skills typically involve smaller muscles. So look at the picture on the screen and see if you can determine which ones would be gross motor skills and which ones would be fine motor skills. In this stage, during the preschool years, children are able to move around their environment with more confidence. As their gross motor skills such as jumping, running, pushing, kicking, and pulling develop, the child becomes increasingly more adventurous. Children in the preschool years are extremely active. 3-year-olds have the highest activity level of any age of the entire lifespan. They fidget during activities such as watching TV, eating dinner, and even sleep. Failure to develop basic motor skills can have long-term negative effects, mostly associated with less desire to be physically active. Fine motor skills also increase as the child ages. They develop the ability to stack blocks and eventually to build block houses, do puzzles, those kinds of things that involve smaller movements. A 3-year-old may have difficulty putting a simple puzzle together even if they know where the piece goes, and they may struggle to fit that piece in. So I have a picture example of that here. So even though their fine motor skills are developing, they're not quite able to do really difficult tasks yet. I have a video on Blackboard of a test called the Denver Developmental Screening Test 2. This is a fast and simple method of diagnosing developmental delays in children from birth through 6 years of age. And the test measures gross and fine motor skills, language, and personal/social ability, such as things like the ability to sit, walk, jump, stack cubes, and draw a person. So this is really interesting if you want to watch it on Blackboard. There's a video that shows you examples of the different tasks children have to do for that test. Next, we're going to talk about some important aspects of health during this stage. So things like sleep, nutrition, exercise, and some important health and safety concerns. So first, we're going to talk about sleep. So remember that in infancy, the child sleeps 16 to 17 hours a day. By 6 months, most infants sleep through the night. However, the most common sleep problem reported by parents is nighttime waking. Nighttime wakings at 1 year of age predicted lower sleep efficiency at 4 years of age. In early childhood, it is recommended that children get 11 to 13 hours of sleep. Most children sleep through the night and take 1 daytime nap. The quality of sleep is also important. The child needs uninterrupted sleep. A big issue during this period is the child resisting going to sleep. It's recommended to keep the child on the same schedule for waking and sleeping time. Make sure that bedtime is a positive experience and help the child calm down before bed. There are 4 specific sleep problems in early childhood. The first is nightmares. Most children have nightmares, and it should not be a concern unless the child is experiencing persistent nightmares. This could be a sign of too much stress during the day. Night terrors are different. A night terror is characterized by a sudden arousal from sleep and an intense fear, usually accompanied by a number of physiological reactions. The child usually does not remember what happened in the night terror. This is less common than nightmares. Children are usually able to go back to sleep quickly and outgrow night terrors. Sleepwalking. This occurs during the deepest stage of sleep. 1 to 5% of children sleepwalk regularly, but most of them outgrow this problem. Another thing that's not talked about in your textbook is sleep talking. This occurs when children are soundly asleep and they start talking. They usually don't respond to you if you try to talk to them, and they probably don't remember doing it when they wake up. This again is not abnormal and no intervention is needed. Another common condition associated with young children and sleep is bedwetting. Bedwetting affects up to 40% of 3-year-olds, 20% of 5 to 6-year-olds, and 1% of adolescents and adults. Research has also shown that there are clear sex differences in bedwetting, with estimates that bedwetting among boys is 2 to 3 times more common than among girls. Most children that bedwet are physically and emotionally normal, and simple bedwetting is so common in children under 6 that treatment is not usually warranted. Bedwetting seems to run in families, with about 85% of children with bedwetting having a relative that did it, and around half of them have a parent or sibling with the condition. Most children with bedwetting have primary nocturnal or nighttime bedwetting. There's also, it can happen in the daytime, but that's a different issue. So at nighttime, the causes of this are not very clear. Although children with the condition seem to be very deep sleepers who have difficulty waking when they sense that their bladder is full. So you would often see that children experience the problem less frequently when sleeping at a friend's house or relative's home, which may be related to sleeping less deeply in a strange bed away from home. Bedwetting can also be stressful for parents who may wonder if bedwetting is done on purpose or out of laziness, and for children for whom it's often an embarrassment. Bedwetting has been linked to lower self-esteem and behavioral problems in older children, but bedwetting tends to resolve on its own and is not the child's fault. As children grow older, the percentage of with primary nocturnal bedwetting usually decreases, though treatment program may make this happen sooner for older children. It's important for parents to be supportive of a child that experiences bedwetting and to remember that the long-term outlook is excellent. We already know how important nutrition is for physical growth during the prenatal period and during infancy. Feeding and eating habits are also important for physical development in the early childhood period. Children's eating behaviors are strongly influenced by their caregivers. Caregivers can help the child establish healthy eating behaviors by eating with the child, modeling healthy eating behaviors, making mealtime pleasant as well as at the same time every day, and minimizing distractions such as TV. Caregivers should limit the amount of fast food and sugar that the child eats. There is an association between sugar consumption and cavities and obesity. Children from lower income families likely consume more sugar than higher income children. Children need 3 hours of exercise per day. This is due to their activity level and the development of large muscles such as the arms and legs. Something parents can do to increase exercise is participate in sports or outdoor play with their children. The parent's perception that it is safe for the child to play outside is associated with increased exercise in children. Children do not usually get enough exercise during the day at preschool. Because children are so active, curious, and unaware of danger during this stage, they are very prone to injury or death from accidents. I have a link on Blackboard for the CDC's leading causes of death that you can look at, but I think this is also talked about in your textbook. I'm just going to talk about a couple of them. Firearms are one of the top risks to children, especially here in the US. Many parents believe that their firearms are safely put away and the children do not handle them. However, interviews with their children revealed that many of the children had handled a firearm in the home. I have a video of this on Blackboard as well. I really suggest you watch it. It's really good. They did this recently here in Dallas too, I think at Cook Children's Hospital. They did a research study there, and I think the one I linked on Blackboard is older, but it's the same idea. So they have parents volunteer who have taught their children about gun safety, and that if you see a gun out in the house or wherever you are, that you're not supposed to touch it. Don't pick it up. Don't look in, like pick it up and look in the barrel. It's not a toy. They've taught their children this, so they think that they can have a gun in their home and that the children won't mess with it, so the child will be safe. And that's not actually the case. So in the study, you'll see that the children go straight to it, point at each other, look down the barrel, pretend to shoot it. So it's really important research, and I really suggest you go watch that video on that. But basically, the bottom line is that firearms are not safe to have around children. So when we're talking about young children, if you do have a firearm, definitely keep it locked away in a safe where there's no possible way that a child could get into it. Don't leave it out where a child could easily pick it up. And for older children, you know, if they're able to figure out a way to get into the safe, then that doesn't really help you. So I just say that they're dangerous to children in general. Some of the other things talked about in the textbook are, again, prone to accidents of all kinds. So this goes back to, again, that they're feeling very curious, they want to explore things, and they can't think through the consequences of their actions. Smoking in the home and exposure to lead are also dangerous at this age, and in the prenatal period, it could cause developmental delays. And then poverty isn't talked about as a health safety concern, but I threw it on the slide because typically in person we would have a discussion about the effects of poverty we've talked about already, and just kind of remind you about that growing up in poverty can have effects on your physical, social, and cognitive development as well. But that is all for chapter 3, so I suggest you go and watch those videos on Blackboard now.